I am Sergeant Ricey Bull, and I'm going to tell you about my experiences with volunteer soldiering during the Civil War. I will talk about my training, daily routine, and combat that comprised the life of an infantryman. I was 19 in the spring of 1862. I had lived on a farm with no daily newspapers, so we had to ask the people that drove by our house if they knew what was going on in the war. At times, we heard the distant sound of a canyon at Whitehall or Glen Falls. Thousands of boys like me felt a sense of duty to aid the Union cause for service in the Army. During July of 1862, enlistment stations were opened in every town. Now a regiment was to be raised in our county, and it would consist mostly of farmers and farm boys like myself. My friend Phineas Spencer and I took action first by going to Fort Anne to enlist. My parents hated the idea of me going to war, but they eventually gave their consent. I first became a member of Company D, 123rd Regiment, New York Volunteer Infantry. Our company was to be from the three townships of Fort Anne, Dresden, and Putnam. Our officers were Captain John Barron, First Lieutenant Alexander Anderson, and Second Lieutenant Edward Cwem. On September 4th, we were mustered into the service of the United States. The news of our sudden departure was known in every part of the county that night, and in the morning thousands of people were in Salem. We said goodbye and were on our way. We first went to New York, where we were given meals that we were not so enthusiastic about, but in later months we would have considered them banquets. Next, we left for Philadelphia. From Philadelphia, we went to Baltimore, then to the Washington Depot. During this travel, we suffered so much from heat and thirst. From there, we traveled in cattle cars to Annapolis Junction. This is where we saw our first actual soldiering. From Annapolis Junction until we reached Washington, we saw camps scattered along the railroad. Near Washington, we found that a great camp of white tents seemed to surround the city. In Washington, we were directed to the Soldiers' Home. This was by far the worst conducted institution of its kind in the whole country. From there, we went to the East Branch, somewhere near the Potomac River. Here we had little tents, but we were so very thankful for them. We remained in this place for 1 week. For food, we received a spoonful of boiled rice, a square chunk of salt pork, and a slice of hardtack, and in our cups a dark fluid that was called coffee. The rice was burned, the hardtack was of good quality, but we had not yet learned to appreciate its value. The pork was very salty, and the coffee had not been made by an expert. As soldiers, we had to get used to anything: discomfort, food, clothing, and shelter. Our next destination was Fort Albany. We were soon surrounded with thousands of new troops. General Silas Casey was in command of this great training encampment. It was at this camp that we passed through the childlike period of soldiering and became reconciled to our food and to other conditions that we had to face in the service. Eventually, we would enter active service after being in the Army only 1 month. Thus, early and practically untrained, we were at the front waiting orders for active field duty.